I'm here to do day 2 of BookMas, and the topic for today's video is going to be series that I finished and series that I'm caught up on. So the first set of books I'm going to talk about is series that I have finished that are officially announced that they are done. But yeah, so let's get into it. The first series that I'm going to chat about is the Evermore series by Sarah Holland. This was a series that I wound up reading with the Time Warp YA Book Club, and I actually wound up rereading it and then completing this series in 2019. Have to say, I love book 1. I thought Everless was so good. I love the world building, and I loved how it was crafted. I love the plot in it. I thought Evermore was okay. I think I struggled a little bit with the pacing in that book, and also the way that the book was structured. It just wasn't as captivating as Everless was. And I felt like the elements of the myth that it were introduced, if you read book 1, you at least kind of know what I'm talking about, just made the book a little bit not as consistent to follow. But I still stand by the fact that I love the world building in this book and I really enjoyed it. I just wish that book 2 had the pacing and was as intriguing to me as book 1. So I ended up giving Everless 5 stars and I wound up giving Evermore 3 stars. But I'm definitely excited to check out more books by Sarah Holland in the future because I think she creates very interesting worlds. I really liked her characters. If you're looking for books kind of like this in the same vein as almost like an Anastasia retelling like a Lost Princess, I would recommend this series, and I really thought the world building was fascinating. I've never read anything else like this before, but that is one of the series that I completed in 2019. The next series that I wound up completing in 2019 was the Thorn of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. Before this reread, I had read up until Heir of Fire, I think I had read up to, and I hadn't read past Heir of Fire. So overall, I really did like this series. I think I preferred book 1 to 3, book 1 to 3 in this series a little bit more than the later half books in this series. But ironically, my favorite book in the entire series was Tower of Dawn. And I think the reason I liked Tower of Dawn or the subsequent earlier books in the series is that this is like a massive and expansive world, and I just felt like in those earlier books and in Tower of Dawn there was less plot points that I had to focus on, and I got way less confused, which is probably just a me problem. But I really did love Tower of Dawn, and I did love the conclusion. One day I'm gonna have to physically read these books because I think I'll get a little bit more out of it because I mostly listen to them through audiobooks, and because they're so long I listen to them on warp speed. But I still really did enjoy it. I just think I definitely did. I love Tower of Dawn. I think that was probably my favorite book in the series. And I really love Selena as a hero. I thought that was really interesting. It's just a very, very big cast of characters, and I think I missed some of the nuances in the storytelling. But overall, I would wind up giving this series overall 4 stars, and I really found it compelling and interesting. And I'm happy that I finally wound up finishing reading it. And I would definitely pick up other series by Sarah J. Maas in the future. I am really excited for Crescent City when it comes out in 2020. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on the Thorn of Glass series by Sarah J. Maas. The next series that I'm going to chat about is the Circle of Magic series, the first 4 books by Tamora Pierce. This was originally a goal for 2018, and I had to finish Briar's book in early 2019. But overall, I really found this series to be super compelling. I really love the magic system, and I really love the characters. This was such a short series to read, and I remember really liking it. Midway through 2019, I started to pick up the other series, and I just wasn't as connected to that book at that time. But the one thing I really did love about the first series was that there was 4 main characters: Sandri, Briar, Daja, and Trish. And every book follows a different main character, but you do see elements of the other characters in them. I found all the mysteries to be super compelling, and I really love the magic system a lot. So I really do have to add her Circle Open series to my TBR. Sorry, guys. People keep calling me and asking me what I want for the holidays, so I'm trying to help them, but also make these videos in a timely fashion. So if that happens again, I do apologize. But I actually wound up really enjoying this series, and I'm definitely going to add the Circle Open series to my series to complete in 2020. So, but yeah, that's my thoughts on the Circle of Magic series. The next series I'm going to chat about is Little White Lies by Jennifer Lynn Barnes, that series, which is Little White Lies and Deadly Little Scandals. This was a series that I wound up finishing in 2019 recently. I think I finished it in like October or November. And I will admit, I say this about all Jennifer Lynn Barnes series, and I do recommend that you read them very close together because she writes, her books are always very, very tightly wound in the mystery category. And it's not until you get to like the last book that everything starts to like make sense. But it basically follows this girl named Sawyer who realizes that she is a part of a wealthy family. And the first book is all about her debutante life and going through deb season. And the second book is just an offshoot of that. I found book one to be super fun, but I adored book two. I thought book two was so solid, and I really thought it was a great way to wrap up that series. It had elements. It reminded me a little bit of Pretty Little Liars in the first book, but her mystery crafting is just spectacular. So I really cannot wait to see what she writes next. We got a standalone from her this year as well that I also really enjoyed. But I'm really curious to see what her next series is because I'm always super interested in what she's writing next. But this was a series that I wound up really enjoying. And the second book took me by surprise, and I'm going to chat about that in a couple more videos this wrap up season. So keep a nose out for those. The next series that I'm going to chat about that I wound up finishing in 2019 was the Cruel Prince series by Holly Black, and I wound up finishing reading Queen of Nothing. This was definitely one of my most highly anticipated reads of 2019 because I really did not want to be spoiled for it. I felt like if I got spoiled, it would have been so disappointing. But I actually wound up enjoying it. It wasn't my favorite book in the series. I preferred Wicked King out of all the books, but I did like it. I thought the ending was actually rather well crafted, and I felt for a 300-page novel, it did wrap everything up. I still have questions. I really am hoping we get a sequel series or like a companion series, and I'm going to talk about that in 2020. Maybe we'll get a little bit more information. But I really did like it. I have a whole Queen of Nothing reading vlog. I talked about it in my wrap up. So there's a lot of places that you can talk about it. And I'm definitely going to talk about it in my top 10 reads of the year because it definitely did make that list. Even though this book did not get 5 stars for me, it got 4.5 stars. I still feel like it was one of the better conclusions that I've read this year. And the last book that I'm going to chat about in this section of this video is The Last Life of Prince Alistair by Alexandra Bracken, which is the second book and concluding book in the Prospero Reading series. I had similar thoughts and feelings about this book than I had with the Evermore ending. I just wasn't as connected to the plot and the pacing of this novel. I thought it was like a little bit awkward. It's definitely a longer book, and I just wasn't as connected. And I just remember I just wanted it to move faster, and I felt like there was a lot of stuff that didn't really need to be in it. So I wound up giving this book like 3 stars. It definitely wasn't my favorite conclusion, but I was happy that I read it. I think maybe if I would have read it like during the Halloween season, I would have been a little bit more invested in it, but I didn't read it during the Halloween season. So that's my thoughts on that series, but I did wind up completing it. So now I'm going to talk about some series that I'm caught up to date on, that I have read all the books that are currently out, and there has to be at least 2 or more books that I read, so it can't be like one book is out. But yeah, so let's get into that list. I'm going to talk about 5 series that I caught up on in 2019, and the first series I'm going to talk about is Arlo Finch and the Valley of Fire series by John August. So in 2019, I wound up finishing Arlo Finch and the Lake of the Moon. Valley of Fire is the first book in the series. I think I still preferred book 1 a little bit more, but I did wind up catching up, and I found this read to be a little bit compelling. I thought the mystery was super interesting. I really loved the setting because I kind of went to there was new settings introduced and new characters introduced. I felt like the mystery was not as predictable as I was expecting. And I'm really excited for book 3, which hopefully is coming out in 2020. But yeah, so that's my thoughts on that series. And I'm really happy that I wound up catching up on it. That is one of my bigger problems, is to read subsequent books in a series as they come out. I'm trying to get better. It's going to be a goal for 2020, but these are the few series that I actually am caught up on, which is nice. The next book series I'm going to chat about is the Camelot Code series by Mari Makuzi, and I'm not sure if this series is done or if we're going to get another book, so I'm just going to put it here to be safe. But the Camelot Code series, and I read them both. I read the Camelot Code and then Once and Future Geek by Mari Makuzi. For those that don't know, this is a King Arthur-inspired middle grade series retelling. The first book follows Stu and his friend Sophie, and they wind up getting sucked into King Arthur's court and having to solve a bunch of different issues that are happening. And then book 2 involves this group of characters, and they actually have to go back to their world and try to find the Holy Grail. And I really liked it. I think I like book 1 a little bit more just because we saw all of the characters, and in book 2 we missed a couple of the characters, so I missed that. But I really hope we get a book 3 because I found these characters to be super charming, and I really do enjoy the characters. I just think it's such a fun read. It reminds me of the Land of Stories series by Chris Colfer, because they also had a King Arthur in their book. But I'm really, really happy with it, and I'm excited to see. Hopefully we'll get more in the future. I haven't seen anything about a book 3, but I'm hoping that we do get one, because I really find them to be very, very fast-paced reads, and I really do like King Arthur and Merlin as well. So the next series that I'm caught up to date on is the Geekerella series, and I did actually do a reread of Geekerella, but I also did read The Princess and the Fangirl by Ashley Poston this year. I read these out of order, so I read Princess and the Fangirl first, and then I read Geekerella, and originally I gave Princess and the Fangirl 5 stars, but after I read Geekerella, I bumped Princess and the Fangirl down a bit to 4 stars because I did like the book. I thought there was a lot going on in that story because it basically had 2 diverging romances, and I just felt like it was harder to feel super connected to the characters because it wasn't one romance like we had in Geekerella, and I just thought that romance I was head over heels in love with. I loved it so much. These other 2 romances I enjoyed, but they weren't as captivating. So I wound up giving Princess and the Fangirl 4 stars, but I love Geekerella on my reread, and I love it. So I'm really excited to see what is the next one that we're getting and what characters we're going to follow. I thought that Princess and the Fangirl it dealt with a lot more issues that I think happen in Hollywood that we don't normally see. I like the divergent romances. I just wish that there was more time because I felt like I wasn't as connected to the characters as I was with Darian and Ella in Geekerella. But I'm equally excited to see what is the next book put out in this series because I really do like Ashley Poston as an author, and I really do like these worlds and all these characters because it's all about cons, and I love Comic-Con or any type of conventions that I go to. And whenever I read these books, it reminds me of those times of the year that is oh so exciting for me. And I think the next one is Beauty and the Beast. That's what I've heard. Rumors from Ashley Poston, so hopefully that's true. The next series I'm going to chat about is the Hometown Anti-Hero series, but the book is called Don't Say a Word by Amber Lynn Nashad. Here's the cover because I have a little bit of a trouble saying her name. When I was reading this, I found it super funny because Veronica Mars, I was in the middle of a Veronica Mars rewatch, and I was reading this, and this book screams Veronica Mars to me. It's basically, it's very similar to that book. There is a big mystery, and then there's littler mysteries in each of the books. So they're very, captivating, and I'm really enjoying it. I struggle sometimes with her as a main character because I've said this so many times. I struggle with unlikable characters a lot of the time, and she's definitely is in that category. But I do like the mysteries and I do like the characters that she's like surrounded by. I just struggle with her a little bit. But I really was invested in the mystery. I think I was more invested in this mystery than the one in the first book. Um, but sometimes you just want to like take her and shake her. Like, why are you getting yourself into trouble? But I did like this book more than book one. And I think she's growing on me a little bit more. But I definitely am more invested in the side characters than I am in the lead, which is okay. But I'm definitely going to keep reading and see how I feel about her at the end. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the Hometown Anti-Hero series. The next series that I'm going to chat about is, I don't know if it has a name, but it's the If I'm Being Honest companion series by Emily Weberly and Austin Sigmund Broca. And I actually read both their books this year. Well, I read If I'm Being Honest and Always Never Yours, and I thoroughly enjoyed them both. For those of you that don't know, I'm a theater teacher and I teach in a middle school in Astoria, Queens, and I'm always looking for books that incorporate the arts in some way because I love reading about the arts. And this companion series is perfect because it basically takes Shakespeare's plots but turns them into a contemporary novel, and I loved Always Never Yours. I thought it was so fun. I also really loved If I'm Being Honest, and I just found them to be so compelling. Always Never Yours is inspired by Romeo and Juliet because it's set in the play Romeo and Juliet. And then If I'm Being Honest is a taming of the shrew retelling. And I really love them both. I found them to be so fascinating, so compelling, and I just was really invested in them. I know their third one is coming out in 2020, and I think it's If I'm Going Forth is the name of it. I'll double check that and I'll try to link it in the description box. But I really love I really love their writing style. It's like a husband and wife that are writing the series. And I just really found them to be so fun. And I read them both during like the one during the summer and one during my show week for Willy Wonka. And it was just such a quick read. I think I preferred Always Never Yours a little bit more, but I love the cameo that we got of the Always Never Yours characters in If I'm Being Honest, and I'm really excited to keep reading in 2020. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the If I'm Being Honest series. I don't know if it really has a name, but that's what I'm going to call it. The next book series I'm going to chat about is the Van Beaker series by Karen Van Glazer. During this year, I wound up reading the Van Beekers to the Rescue, and I actually wound up meeting her at Books of Wonder. And I really am loving the series. I think it's such a nice contemporary based series about a big family set in New York City, and every book follows like a different adventure, and they're all like one was based around Christmas time, one was based in like this I think like the spring, and one was based in like the fall. But I really like them. They're very, very quick paced reads, and I really love the mysteries. I really like how this book represents real life in New York City. Like, I feel like the parents who notoriously in middle grade literature don't exist. But I really like the dynamics between parents and child, and I like how the the stories are realistic, but can have elements of maybe something like fantastical, but not really. Just like some elements that like say, how did that happen? But I think that they're realistic, and I think it's important for kids to see their own life reflected in books. I love the fact that it has a big family, and I'm just so impressed with it. I read book 3, and I cannot wait to read book 4 in the future because they're really, really cute. So if you're looking for more of like a realistic contemporary novel for your kids or your students, I would recommend this series. There's 3 books out currently, and I think there's going to be 5, she said. This one is all about trying to save their mother's baking business when hilarity, drama, and animals ensue for sure. So really, really liked it, and I cannot wait to read book 4 whenever it comes out. The next series that I'm going to chat about is the Dead Voices series by Catherine Arden and Dead Voices is the second book, and Small Spaces was the first book, and I wound up reading Dead Voices this year. Last year I did get Small Spaces at BEA and I liked it. It was not my favorite book I read, but I have to admit that this book really was a step up. And normally with sequels, they sometimes aren't as captivating, but I simply love the characters in this book. I love the setting, and I just was really captivated. I maybe it was the setting. This one with that Small Spaces was set in the fall. This was set in winter at a winter cabin that had some ghostly experiences happening, and I actually just wound up really liking it. I wound up finishing in like a weekend, but I really enjoyed it. I'm definitely going to be checking out the subsequent season books, which means we're going to have a summer one coming and a spring one coming one in the next couple of years. But I definitely really enjoyed it, and I was happy that I wound up picking up this one. Picked up as an audiobook, and I think that that was a good decision. So that's my thoughts on the Dead Voices or Small Spaces series by Catherine Arden. The next book series I'm going to chat about is the Sanity and Tallulah graphic novel series by Molly Brooks. I am officially up to date on this series. I read book 1 last year because I got an ARC at BEA. I got an ARC at BEA this year, so I wound up reading book 2. Well, admit this book was not my favorite. I think I preferred book 1. I like the setting of book 1 a lot more. This one was based around a field trip, and you missed a lot of the characters and experiences that we had in book 1. We did meet some new characters. I just felt like this book, like the first book, had a different plots that I don't think necessarily connected well enough to keep me engaged. And it just wasn't my favorite. But I do like the focus on STEM. I like the field trip elements. I just wasn't as connected to this story or this adventure as the first one. But yeah, so that's my thoughts. I'm definitely going to keep reading this series. If anything, I'll probably get them out from the library because they're like pretty quick reads. But yeah, I liked it. I didn't love it, but I am caught up to date on this series. The next book series that I'm going to talk about is what I hope is going to turn into a series and not a duology, and that's the Start of Me and You series by Emery Lord. I wound up listening to the audiobook of this book over the summer purely because I got the ARC at BEA and I wanted to read it. And then I read this book when I was sick with my stomach virus. I wound up reading this book and I actually really liked it. I thought that it was a great sequel. The reason I'm putting it in this section is because we haven't got up to the end of their high school year yet. So I'm curious to see if we're actually are going to get a third book or if this is going to be the end. If this is going to be the end, I'm happy with it. I still have questions. And there was something introduced in book 2 that we didn't like get a completion on, and that would bother me if we didn't get to complete the list that was introduced. But I overall really liked it. I love seeing these characters again. I love seeing how they grow and develop, and it was just really fun. It also dealt with a lot of issues that you don't normally see in YA contemporaries. This book actually comes out in January 2020, so it's not out yet, but I highly recommend if you loved The Start of Me and You that you add this to your 2020 reads because it was high on mine, and I was really happy that I got to read it because I really enjoyed it. That Bloomsbury decides to add a third book to the series because I really need to know how it ends. So, Bloomsbury, work on that for me if possible. The last book I'm going to chat about in this series or in this video is the Trials of Apollo series by Rick Riordan. This is the 4th book in the Trials of Apollo series, and I have to say I like this book, but I think I preferred The Burning Maze. The Burning Maze is the previous book in the series, and it had like a lot of stuff happening, so this book was kind of like the aftermath of it. I did like the setting that we went to, but I definitely felt like this book was like more of like dealt with the aftermath of book 3 in the series, and a lot happened. It was a very, very intense book, so I think I just preferred that book a little bit more, but I'm really excited to see what happens in the 5th book in the series. I'm unsure if this is going to be the last book or if we're going to get one more, but I'm really loving this series. I'm loving all the cameos of all the characters that we're getting and all the settings that we get to visit because, as I said before, Rick Riordan crafts such a complicated world that like you need a lot of books to feature all of these characters. So yeah, those are the 5 series that I wound up finishing in 2019, and those are the 5 series that I'm caught up to in 2019. Let me know in the comments what are some series that you finished in 2019 and what series did you catch up on or complete. But yeah, so let's talk in the comments and I'll talk to you tomorrow for another BookMas video. Bye guys.